I was working at a train station in Brussels when an American woman walked up to my counter and asked how far London was. I told her about 2 hours by train. She stared at me like I'd just told her the moon was made of cheese. 2 hours, she said. But it's a whole different country. I nodded. She shook her head. That's impossible. It takes me 4 hours just to drive across Texas. I didn't know what to say to that. I just handed her the ticket and watched her walk away, still muttering about how Europe must be using different physics or something. Another time, I was behind a guy at a McDonald's in Paris. He ordered a quarter pounder, then got genuinely upset when they told him they don't call it that in France. "What do you mean you don't have a quarter pounder?" he said. "It's McDonald's. It's the same everywhere." The cashier tried to explain that in France, they use the metric system, so it's called a royale with cheese. The guy just stared. "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard," he said. "A quarter pound is a quarter pound. You can't just change math." He ended up ordering chicken nuggets instead, like the burger had personally betrayed him. My friend who works at a hotel in Rome told me about a guest who called the front desk at 11 at night, furious that the city was closed. She couldn't understand why all the shops and restaurants near the hotel had shut down. "It's only 11, she kept saying. "Nothing closes at 11. This is a major city." My friend tried to explain that in Italy, most places close earlier, especially on weekdays. The woman wasn't having it. "Well, that's just bad business," she said. "In New York, everything's open all night. How do people even live here?" My friend suggested she try the 24-hour gas station down the street. The woman hung up. I once watched an American couple at a cafe in Amsterdam completely lose their minds over the bill. They'd had 2 coffees and a pastry, and the total came to about 12 euros. The guy looked at the receipt like it was written in hieroglyphics. "There's no tip line," he said. The waiter explained that the tip was already included in the price. The guy shook his head. "No, I need to leave a tip." "How do I leave a tip?" The waiter said he didn't need to, but the guy insisted. He ended up leaving cash on the table anyway, then stood there waiting for the waiter to thank him. The waiter just looked confused. The couple left looking offended, like Europe had somehow failed them. These stories aren't rare. They happen all the time. Americans show up in other countries expecting everything to work exactly like it does back home. And when it doesn't, the confusion is real. It's not mean-spirited. It's just funny how differently the world operates depending on where you're standing. And trust me, these are just the warm-up stories. I worked at a hostel in Berlin for 2 summers, and the number of Americans who showed up without adapters for their electronics was wild. One guy came down to the lobby with his phone charger and just stared at the wall outlet like it had grown teeth. "Why are the holes different?" he asked. I told him it was because Europe uses a different voltage and plug type. He looked at me like I'd just made that up. "But my charger works in America," he said. "It should work everywhere." I had to explain that no, countries have different standards. He ended up buying an adapter from me, but he was mad about it. "This is a scam," he muttered. "They make you buy extra stuff just to charge your phone." Another guest, a woman from Florida, asked me if she needed to exchange her dollars for European money. I told her she'd need euros. She nodded, then asked if euros were worth the same as dollars. I said no, the exchange rate changes. She thought about this for a minute. "So if I bring $100, how many euros is that?" I checked my phone and told her about 90 euros, depending on the rate. She frowned. "That doesn't seem fair," she said. "Why is it less?" I tried to explain currency values, but she just shook her head. "In America, a dollar is a dollar." "This is too confusing." She ended up using her credit card for everything and complained later about foreign transaction fees. I had a roommate in college from Seattle who studied abroad in Prague. He told me about his first week there when he tried to take the tram without a ticket. He didn't realize you had to buy one before boarding. When the ticket inspector came through, my roommate tried to explain that in America, you usually pay on the bus. The inspector didn't care. He wrote him a fine on the spot. My roommate was shocked. "I didn't know," he kept saying. "There's no sign in English." The inspector just shrugged. My roommate paid the fine, but he was bitter about it for weeks. "It's a trap," he'd say. "They just want to catch tourists." My cousin visited me in Vienna and insisted on tipping everyone. I mean everyone. The bus driver, the grocery store clerk, the guy at the train ticket machine who helped him figure out which button to press. Every time I had to explain that tipping wasn't expected here. He didn't believe me. "Everyone likes tips," he said. "It's just being polite." At a restaurant, he left a 20% tip, even though service was included. The waiter literally chased us down the street to give the money back, thinking my cousin had made a mistake. My cousin was confused. Why doesn't he want it? I gave up trying to explain. I was on a train from Munich to Salzburg when I overheard two American tourists talking about how weird it was that the train was so quiet. One of them said, "Why is no one talking?" "It's creepy," her friend agreed. "Right? Like, is it rude to talk on trains here or something?" The answer, by the way, is yes. In many European countries, people keep their voices down on public transit. But these two didn't get the memo. They spent the whole ride talking at full volume about their trip, laughing, playing music from their phone speaker. Everyone around them looked annoyed, but no one said anything. When they got off, I heard one of them say, "See? No one cared." I don't think they realized that silence wasn't agreement. A guy I met in a hostel in Krakow told me he got yelled at for walking into someone's house with his shoes on. He'd been invited to a dinner party and didn't think twice about it. Apparently, the host's mom saw him and froze. She pointed at his feet and said something in Polish he didn't understand, but the tone was clear. His friend pulled him aside and told him to take his shoes off. "I felt like an idiot," he said. "But how was I supposed to know? In America, no one cares." I told him that in a lot of countries, wearing shoes indoors is considered disrespectful. He nodded slowly. "That's so random," he said. I watched a woman at a bakery in Copenhagen get frustrated because they didn't accept her $50 bill. She kept saying, "It's American money. It's good everywhere." The cashier tried to explain that they only took Danish kroner or card payments. The woman didn't have either. She ended up leaving without her pastries, muttering about how backwards the system was. I wanted to tell her that maybe she should have checked before traveling, but I kept my mouth shut. One of the funniest things I saw was at a train platform in Switzerland. An American family had bought first-class tickets, but sat in second class by mistake. When the conductor came through, he politely told them they needed to move. The dad got defensive. "We paid for first class," he said. "Why does it matter where we sit?" The conductor explained that the sections are separate for a reason. The dad still didn't get it. "But the train's half empty," he said. "What's the big deal?" The conductor didn't argue. He just waited. Eventually, the family moved, but they were grumbling the whole time about how uptight everything was. I was guiding a walking tour in Dublin when an American tourist asked me if people in Ireland speak English or Irish. I told her both, but most people speak English day to day. She seemed relieved. "Oh, good," she said. "I was worried I'd need a translator." Then she asked if Ireland was part of the UK. I said no, it's an independent country. She looked confused. "But you're right next to England," she said. I nodded. She tilted her head. "So, you're like the same thing?" I had to spend 5 minutes explaining Irish independence and why that question might bother some locals. She just kept saying, "But you're so close." My friend who works at a museum in Athens told me about a visitor who asked where the dinosaur fossils were. My friend said they don't have dinosaurs. It's a museum of ancient Greek history. The visitor frowned. "But isn't Greece like really old? Didn't dinosaurs live here?" My friend tried to explain the difference between ancient civilizations and prehistoric eras. The visitor didn't look convinced. "Well, that's confusing," she said, and walked away. I once sat next to an American guy on a flight to Barcelona who asked me if people in Spain speak Mexican. I blinked. You mean Spanish? I said. He shrugged. Yeah, same thing. I told him Spanish is from Spain, and Mexican Spanish is a dialect. He waved his hand. Potato, potato, he said. When we landed, he tried ordering food at the airport in what I can only describe as a Taco Bell accent. The cashier just switched to English immediately. A woman at a cafe in Stockholm asked me why it was still light outside at 10 p.m. I told her about the midnight sun and how far north we were. She didn't believe me. That's not how the sun works, she said. I tried explaining Earth's tilt and latitude. She shook her head. In California, the sun sets at a normal time. This is weird. I didn't know how to respond to that. I had a classmate in university from Texas who studied abroad in London. She came back confused about why everyone drove on the wrong side. I reminded her that the UK drives on the left, and it's not wrong, just different. She wasn't buying it. But most of the world drives on the right, she said. So technically, they're doing it wrong. I told her that logic doesn't really work, but she insisted. If the majority does it one way, that's the right way. That's how voting works. I gave up. My brother worked at a souvenir shop in Edinburgh, and he told me about a customer who wanted to buy a UK flag. My brother asked if she meant the Union Jack. She stared at him. What's a Union Jack? He explained that it's the flag of the United Kingdom. She said, no, I want the UK flag. You know, the one with the red cross. My brother realized she meant the English flag, not the UK flag. He showed her both and explained the difference. She bought the English one and said, I don't know why you guys need so many flags. I was at a pub in Brussels when an American guy asked the bartender why Belgium had 3 official languages. The bartender said, it's because different regions speak different languages. Dutch, French, and German. The guy looked baffled. Why don't you just pick one? He said. It'd be way easier. The bartender smiled politely. It's part of our history, he said. The guy shrugged. In America, we all speak English. Works fine. I saw the bartender's smile tighten just a little. A tourist in Amsterdam asked me if the canals were natural. I said no, they were built in the 1600s. She looked impressed, then asked, so, like, before cars? I said yes, way before cars. She thought about this. Then how did they build them? I tried explaining that people have been building things for thousands of years without modern machinery. She said, that's crazy. I just figured everything old was, like, natural. I didn't know. Where to start with that one, I watched a guy at a train station in Paris get into an argument with a ticket agent because the date on his ticket was written day-month-year instead of month-day-year. He kept insisting the ticket was printed wrong. The agent explained that most of the world writes dates that way. The guy said, that doesn't make sense. The month should come first. The agent just stared at him. Why? She asked. He didn't have an answer. He just kept repeating, because that's how it is. My roommate in Vienna told me about an American exchange student who couldn't understand why everyone used the 24-hour clock. What's wrong with AM and PM? She'd say. My roommate explained that the 24-hour system avoids confusion. The girl shook her head. It's way too complicated. 13 o'clock? 17 o'clock? That's just extra math. My roommate pointed out that you just subtract 12. The girl said, exactly. Extra math. I was at a grocery store in Copenhagen when I saw an American couple staring at a carton of milk. The woman pointed at the label. It says 1 liter, she said. How much is that in real measurements? Her husband squinted. I think it's like a quart, maybe? She frowned. Why can't they just use gallons? They ended up not buying it because they weren't sure if it was enough. I wanted to tell them 1 liter is about 4 cups, but they'd already moved on, still complaining. I was working at a pharmacy in Amsterdam when an American guy came in asking for Tylenol. I told him we had paracetamol, which is the same thing. He looked at me like I was trying to scam him. No, I need Tylenol, he said. I explained that paracetamol is the generic name for the same drug. He shook his head. I don't want some knockoff European version. I want the real thing. I grabbed a box and showed him the ingredients. Same exact formula. He still wasn't convinced. He left without buying anything. I later saw him at another pharmacy down the street, probably having the same conversation. A friend of mine who works at a car rental in Italy told me about a customer who got mad because the car had a manual transmission. "I can't drive stick," the guy said. My friend offered to upgrade him to an automatic for an extra fee. The guy was offended. "Why do I have to pay more for a normal car?" My friend explained that in Europe most cars are manual, so automatics are less common and cost more. The guy said, "That's backwards. In America, no one drives stick anymore. You guys are like 20 years behind." He paid for the automatic, but complained the entire time. I was on a train in Germany when an American woman asked the conductor why there were no cup holders. The conductor looked confused. "Cup holders?" he repeated. She gestured around. "Yeah, like for coffee. Where am I supposed to put my drink?" He suggested she hold it or place it on the table if she was in a seat with one. She wasn't satisfied. "That's so inconvenient," she said. "Trains in America have cup holders." The conductor just nodded and moved on. I heard her mutter, "This is why I don't travel." My cousin visited me in Prague and got confused when I told her the doctor's appointment was free. She had a sinus infection and needed antibiotics. "What do you mean free?" she said. I explained that health care in the Czech Republic is covered for residents. She couldn't wrap her head around it. "But how does the doctor get paid?" I said, "Through taxes." She frowned. "So it's not actually free." I said, "Okay, technically no, but you don't pay out of pocket." She still seemed suspicious. When the doctor gave her a prescription and didn't charge her, she kept asking if there was a bill coming later. There wasn't. I watched an American guy at a cafe in Oslo nearly have a breakdown when he saw the prices. A coffee was about $6. He showed the menu to his friend. $6 for coffee?" he said. "That's insane." His friend agreed. They debated leaving, but they were tired, so they stayed. When the coffee came, the guy took one sip and said, "It's not even that good." I wanted to explain that Norway has a high cost of living, but I figured it wouldn't help. A woman at a hostel in Lisbon asked me why no one spoke English at the grocery store. I told her it's because we're in Portugal and most locals speak Portuguese. She seemed surprised. "But isn't English like the universal language?" I said it's common, but not everyone speaks it. She sighed. "I just think if you work in a tourist area, you should know English. It's basic customer service." I didn't respond to that one. I had a coworker in Berlin from Michigan who couldn't believe how early everything closed. "It's Saturday and the stores close at 8? She said, "That's insane. What if I need something later?" I told her that's just how it works here. Stores have set hours, and Sundays, most places are closed entirely. She was horrified. "What do people do on Sundays?" I said, "Rest, mostly." She shook her head. "That would never work in America." My friend who works at a train station in Brussels told me about a passenger who got upset because the train didn't have Wi-Fi. "How am I supposed to work?" the guy said. My friend explained that not all trains have Wi-Fi, but he could use his phone's data. The guy said, "I'm not paying for international data. That's a rip-off." My friend suggested he download things before traveling. The guy just walked away, annoyed. I saw an American couple at a restaurant in Barcelona get confused when they were seated, but no one brought them water right away. After a few minutes, the guy flagged down a waiter. "Can we get some water?" he asked. The waiter said, "Still or sparkling?" The guy blinked. "Just water. Tap water." The waiter nodded and brought a bottle of still water. When the bill came, the guy saw they'd been charged for it. He was furious. "You charged me for water?" The waiter explained that in Spain, bottled water isn't free. The guy said, "That's insane. Water should be free." The waiter just shrugged. I was at a bus stop in Vienna when an American tourist asked me if the bus took credit cards. I told her no, you need to buy a ticket beforehand or use cash on board. She looked frustrated. Everything in America takes card, she said. Why is Europe so behind? I wanted to point out that most of Vienna's public transit runs on an honor system, and people just validate tickets themselves. But I figured that would confuse her more. A guy at a hostel in Copenhagen told me he got fined for jaywalking. He couldn't believe it. There were no cars coming, he said. Why does it matter? I told him that in a lot of European cities, people follow traffic laws pretty strictly. He said, in New York, everyone jaywalks. No one cares. I said, well, you're not in New York. He shook his head. This place is too strict. I was working at an information desk in Munich when an American woman came up and asked me where she could find a good burger. I suggested a few places. She wrinkled her nose. Are they American-style burgers or like European burgers? I wasn't sure what she meant. Just burgers, I said. She sighed. Never mind. I'll just wait till I get home. She left. I realized then that for some people, traveling isn't about experiencing a new place. It's about finding pieces of home in unfamiliar territory. And when those pieces don't fit exactly right, the confusion turns into frustration. Not every American abroad struggles like this. Plenty adapt quickly, laugh at the differences, and enjoy the challenge of navigating a new culture. But the ones who don't, they provide endless entertainment. I'm not saying it to be mean. It's just fascinating how we all grow up assuming the way we do things is the default, and everything else is a variation. Americans aren't unique in this. Every culture has its blind spots. It's just that American confidence tends to be louder, so the surprises hit harder. One of my favorite moments happened at a train station in Bruges. A guy asked me if I could help him figure out the ticket machine. I walked him through it. Select destination. Choose ticket type. Pay with card. Simple. When it printed his ticket, he looked at it and frowned. This doesn't have a seat number, he said. I told him that's because you don't get assigned seats on this train. You just sit anywhere available. He stared at me. What if the train's full? I said, then you stand or wait for the next one. He shook his head slowly. That's the most disorganized thing I've ever heard. I didn't have the heart to tell him it works perfectly, fine for millions of people every day. There's something oddly comforting about these stories. They remind me that the world is big, and no single system is the right one. We all just do what makes sense in our context. The comedy comes from the clash. When someone walks into a space expecting their rules to apply and finds out they don't. And honestly, I think we've all been that confused traveler at some point, standing in a foreign country wondering why nothing works the way it should. I could keep going. I've got dozens more stories like these. Americans trying to tip in Japan, getting confused by bidets in Italy, asking why Europeans don't have red Solo cups. The list is endless, but I'll leave it here for now. If you've ever traveled, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, just wait. The world is full of surprises, and trust me, these stories